Hi, everyone. We're really excited just to welcome this kind of amazing audience on today's webinar. And I'm super, super excited. I will try just to keep mic in my hands as less as possible because we have Peter and Anna, who is just amazing audience. So the floor will be theirs. But maybe just let me kick off this webinar with a few slides that I wanted just to share with you. There will be, let's say, some provocative opener of this webinar. Can you see our screen, Peter? Can you see?
Oh yeah, you're
Cool.
good.
So, I spend a lot of time just talking to our users, just to the market. I think just about 20, 30 conversations weekly. And I think we live in a kind of like an extreme market where people try to optimize effectively for two things: for obviously quality, the engagement, the experience of our learners, but also be fast, be productive, be efficient. And I think the tech stack, the authoring tech stack effectively represent by two extremes. Either you're fast, but you compromise on the quality and effectively most of your courses look the same, or you have all the freedom, you have to be the opportunity to be Picasso, but your pencil is slow. In part, we believe that we can challenge this status quo, and we believe that we can have both freedom and speed. And that's effectively what our webinar is about today, where Peter and Anna will uncover how they manage to take on this journey. And in terms of the agenda, most of the time we'll spend just on showing the art of possible, focusing on the quality aspect, because I strongly believe in my subjective view, just Peter and Anna, just amazing designers. So we would love just to give the floor to their creativity to unpack on that. We'll definitely spend some time just to focus on the productivity because we want just to achieve both things, and we'll try to keep some time for Q&A. So with that, Peter, Anna, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you. Anna, while you get the presentation up, I'll go ahead and just introduce myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Adams. I'm the manager of customer enablement at ChurnZero. I've been with ChurnZero for just about 5 years, and it has been a wild ride. So I'm primarily responsible for our customer enablement side of the business. So I'm trying to create and lead the strategies that will drive our customers' product comprehension, their collaboration and adoption of our product through the tools that we oversee, which is the LMS and the community. And I think it's important to also know past life, Peter. I got my degree in technical design for theater, designing sets. So design, I think, is a really important word, especially in the title of instructional designer, because as designers, I think what is really critical or necessary for us to effectively create curriculum that is engaging and fun is we need that creativity. And creativity just doesn't fall from trees, right? A lot of times you have to have the energy, the stamina. You need time so that you can actually think and be creative. And better yet, when you have a tool that is inspiring to use because you can start to be more creative and explore, that's something that I think I've really found with Parta is that my creative juices are flowing faster and better. And I think Anna will also fill in a little bit about how that's beneficial for our actual content and what we're presenting in these tools. But I think I'm also really happy with where we started and where we're at now. It's been a huge year of change for ChurnZero. We've gone through a brand update. We've gone through a product UI update. And so Anna and I have had a lot of work updating our entire content library, which still in progress, but having a tool that's made it that much easier and to elevate what we're doing has been fabulous. But Anna, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Anna. I'm the customer education manager at ChurnZero. And what I do is I'm in charge of our academy. So I design and deliver our content to our users that then helps them use our tool, ChurnZero, efficiently. And as Peter mentioned, and also kind of I'm gonna give you a little bit of context. So we were before we were introduced to Parda, we kind of felt like we outgrew the tools that we were using, and we wanted something that will help us create something that is much more customizable, but also something that does not detract from the efficiency and speed we used to work at. So kind of touching on Andrew's point from earlier. And with Parda, I can tell you that we found both. And even so much more. And we will show you exactly how we build different blocks, and we'll show you specific examples in just a second. So our today's webinar is first, we want to invite you to our gallery opening and show you specific blocks and example we've built in Parda and how we did those. Then we want to talk a little bit about the tools and techniques that Parda allows us to be efficient and creative. And finally, we want to hear from you. What questions do you have? And kind of open it up for discussion. So let's dive in. Oh, and also important to say, we will share those things with you at the end, so you can use those templates yourself. I'll hand it over to Peter.
I love it. Okay, great. So exhibit one, and also something that Anna had told me early on, because Anna really was the reason why we got Parda. It's that when designing, a lot of the times, and didn't you say it's like with other tools, sometimes you feel like you have to sacrifice your content in order to make it work with the template itself, versus having a tool that works for your content and around it versus sacrificing. Yeah.
Yep.
So I feel like that's a lot of what we've gained is that autonomy in design. So this first exhibit, this is a really fun one to create. Honestly, we were inspired by table of contents. So we've come to learn that some of our lessons are long form, heavy text-based lessons broken into sections, right? And we wanted to make the experience easy and seamless for someone to navigate up and down, to be able to jump to section within the course itself. And that way, say someone's returning to the course, right? And they want to find a very specific piece of information. They can avoid the endless scroll. They can jump to a specific section. So we designed what we're calling the Lesson Navigator, which is essentially an interactive table of contents. So Anna, let's scroll down and let's see it in action. So this is an example of the Lesson Navigator. We introduce the lesson, we have a nice introduction, but then students can select a button and it brings them to the section. And Anna, can you just cursor over our return button? So we have this little return button that lives to the side of each section, and this is jumping our students back to that top block, and then they can go back to the second section, so on and so forth. So this has just become an easy way to improve the user's navigation. It's something simple, it's not obtruse, and it makes them navigate and get to the information they need faster. Building it wise, this is actually a very basic build. We used a figure, and that background image is a secondary gradient of ours that was provided by our marketing team. And then I designed a circular image for our Lesson Navigator icon. And then we placed that as the background image of a button and adjusted the sizes of the button and made the text transparent so that it just looked like it was an actionable icon. Very basic setup, but really effective when used well and clear for our students. Let's check out okay, so here's our second exhibit. And I see things popping off in the chat. So Andrew, just keep track of like if there's any questions that we missed, feel free to interject. Okay, so Easter egg hotspots. This is something that I wanted to create as a way to engineer a discoverable interactive moment. I find that when we as people make discoveries, our brains get really hype about that discovery. Like, oh my gosh, what did I just discover? I want to do more. I want to check out more. And so I thought we can just use a labeled graphic and just change the colors so that way they are really subtle. And then we can provide like bonus content that's not essential to the learner, but just aids in their exploration. And I think by giving someone that opportunity to see something and be like, wait, what is that? Is that clickable? What I'm trying to affect is I want them to ask, what else is clickable? What else can I engage with in this course? So now they're focused on the actual engagement because they know they can discover certain Easter eggs. And so this is something that we're starting to work with. I'll go ahead and yeah, so you can see like each of these icons, like you don't really see the labeled graphic radiating off of them. That's because the color, it's a very similar color to the background image, and I have it at like I think 10% transparency. But this is also a relatively simple build. And I think this is something that other designers, I want us to start thinking about is we don't need to create something super complex. Like custom doesn't need to be complex. Customized can be really simple and effective. So I actually built this graphic in PowerPoint. It's part of a larger presentation for a new initiative on our CX team, the CX charters, how we navigate our customers through success in their life cycles. And so I took that graphic from the PowerPoint slide and I uploaded it into Parta. And that's when I just opened up the active labels and I adjusted the color so that it would give me the effect that I want. Now I do give our students a little hint. So when they hover over it, it will change color to like a button color that we're using consistently throughout all of our courses. You can see how it's in red. And so again, this is a super easy build. I mean, I had the asset from PowerPoint. I just saved the slide, those elements as an image. So it had a transparent background. So that way it would look like the same color background as in Parta and almost float. But yeah, that was a really fun one. And I think it's been nice for students to engage. And this is a course that we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on. It's a very interesting audience. And that also leads us to the second exhibit. So this is an accordion style block, and it has or a tab block, and it has an accordion nested within it. And this is also part of that same course, the CX charters. I would say that for context, I think you guys need a little bit of background. This was a challenging course for me to build, and the challenge was purely time. So our senior level executives on the CX team came to me and they're like, hey, we have this new initiative. We want to get a course developed for senior level and executives to understand how we're going to be supporting them through their life cycles and how we will guide them through their quarterly business reviews so they can understand how they are adopting our product successfully in specific charters like adoption, expansion, and renewals. And our CS, our VP of CS, Lucas, he was like, "Here's a bunch of information. Can you make it really easy to digest? I want executives to finish this course in about 10 to 15 minutes." And I think anyone here, drop in the chat if you're like, "Oh, you want to develop a course with a whole bunch of information in 10 to 15 minutes?" Yeah, like I think we can all feel that. Yes, yes, Zainab, we need training yesterday. Exactly. And so it's like, holy crap, how am I going to do this? And Anna, let's go to the tabs. Let's go to the tabs. Because the goal was, A, we got to know our audience, right? They're executives. They're not going to have a lot of time. So what I wanted to do was on the main tab, provide like the main real estate, the majority of it. That's the critical information, right? They need to know what a charter is. They need to know why it matters to them. And when we think about this audience, they understand data, they understand metrics. That's what's leading a lot of their conversations. And so that's what we want to show them up front. Now, the actual accordion that drops down, and can we scroll back up? I just want to go back over the accordion. This section here, this is also really valuable. And it's valuable for that executive leader audience, but it's also really valuable for our product champion, the person who works for that executive leader. And so if you think about, you might have stakeholders who they're not heavy on the product adoption, but they're responsible for the renewal. They've got the card, right? So this is giving them the ability to now have a conversation with their product champion who might be administering the tool and say, hey, for this adoption and enablement initiative, do we have any alerts that have been configured for adoption and enablement? Or what about journey life cycles? Have we mapped any customer life cycles that target and drive adoption and expansion efforts? So now what this course is doing is it's opening up conversations between the stakeholder, the product champion, so they can start to understand how they can adopt and implement solutions through this charter. And this was a lot of fun to build. I think we took a couple times to, finesse it, but we were able to get this done within about 72 hours, which is quite wild. And let's scroll down. I want to talk a little bit about how this was built. I think when it comes to building, I would say this is a more complex block because we're really bringing in two separate elements. And the way in which I went about this is what's nice is once you create, say, the first tab of the tabbed experience, then you can duplicate it, right? And so I spent the majority of my time finessing and building tab one, getting my accordion to have the complex list object nice and evenly spaced with my images and the text and the dividers. And then once I had this first tab fully designed and I had all of my elements in place, then all I needed to do was duplicate each tab and update the copy. And the copy I got from my CX leadership, because I'm like, there's no way I can put a course together in 72 hours unless you can give me content. So this turned out really well. I think our leaders were really thrilled with it. And it was fun because you understood how important it was for our VP of customer success. He wanted this course to be really effective. This was his brainchild, so he was very close to the material. And so his critiques and feedback were starting to turn more towards the design than the content. And what was nice is we were able to work quickly, and because Parta was so flexible, I was able to make their change, like the changes they wanted on the fly. All right, Anna, let's go to
Peter,
the
can I just
yeah.
relate just in a second? I think it's a very interesting example because to me, I see first the structure and the importance of the structure, because sometimes we see a lot of designers think about the engagement through the perspective of like, I don't know, some like confetti stuff, kind of some like, I don't know, like beautification.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel that I'm as a learner myself, I find it hard to engage with the content that I don't understand immediately. And it's much easier for me to understand the content when I understand the structure of the complex things. Because when I look at this example, I find the repetitive structure with all these different like aspects that you wanted just to pack inside. So I think it's just, and we see these examples, kind of how people kind of try just to make this more structured blocks, especially when people have to storytell about more complex things, where like software is oftentimes is a complex thing. So instead of this infinite scrolling, and with the infinite scrolling, the major risk is that we lose the attention and people don't understand the structure. So to me, structure is a very, very important thing. So kudos to you. I think you just totally mastered it.
And also it's by repeating that structure, by cloning each tab, it's repeatable and predictable. And that also is eliminating the need for a student to figure out how do I work the interaction, right? We don't want them to think about the interaction. It should just be intuitive and natural. So they're focusing on the content. And I think we've also understood aesthetics matter. People like things that are pretty. When things are not pretty, people will tell you, or they just won't even look and walk away. Um, anyway, all right, Anna, I've taken up my time for these sections. I want you to jump into the next exhibit. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Anna.
Okay, my turn. Okay, so next I'm gonna talk to you about this branching scenario we built. A little bit of context first. So at ChurnZero is a very robust tool. We have a lot of features. Some of them might feel a little bit similar to a new user. So what we wanted to do to resolve this confusion is to create a lesson that is dedicated to explaining what's the difference between this feature and this feature, right? But we wanted to do it in a fun way, and that's where this simulation block comes in. We created this quiz where we ask the learner a bunch of questions. They click through it, and based on their response, at the end, we would recommend what feature they should be using. And let me show you how that works. So first, we kind of introduce that quiz, ask them to think about a specific use case scenario, and then they go through it and click, and they can restart if they want to, but they click, click, click until we recommend something to them, right? And let's say by the end of this, they think, well, actually, no, I want to use it for something else. They can take the survey again and go through this. Now, building it was pretty easy. So those slides that you see, the teal part, we built it in a different tool in Canva, or you can do that in a PowerPoint. And then we exported those images and put in the simulation block. In the simulation block, what you do is you kind of connect those slides. So if you click yes, you go there. If you click no, you go there. So that's the simulation block, which is really, really fun. And another thing we've built that I'm personally very proud of, because it was like a light bulb moment for me. At ChurnZero, we have two certifications. Level 1 is foundational, and level 2 is more advanced. Now, for the more advanced certification, we kind of wanted to create something more unique and fun, and actually test our learners on their ability to navigate ChurnZero, not just answer multiple choice questions. So we created a practical assessment within our level 2 certification, where on the left you have a question, and on the right you have a simulated environment that looks like ChurnZero, where you click around to find the answer to that question. And this is what it looks like. On the left, question, multiple choice. But to find the answer to that question, you need to click around in here until you find the answer, and then you submit. And also you can restart and try again. And this is how we build it. So on the left, as I said, we have a single select quiz question. On the right, we have a simulation block. The same block I showed you was that quiz we did before. It's just the slides within it are different. So really, there's no limit to what you can do with that simulation. You just need to be creative. And with that, we finished our gallery opening, and we want to talk to you a little bit about the tools in Parda we use on a daily basis. So the first thing is branding. So in Parda, you can create different branding templates where and use it for different lessons. For example, let me show you something right now. So let's say I want to change the branding for this specific lesson. And launch it again. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but this was black before, now it's purple. The buttons are a different color. The background is purple and not teal throughout this entire lesson, right? So instead of going to every single block and changing colors there, I can just change the theme, and it just takes me a few clicks.
Something that Anna and I are doing with themes is we've actually been using themes for specific types of content. So we have our feature training theme, we have a webinar theme, and we've just put out a theme for our implementation catalog. And the biggest difference in these themes is primarily color. And we're trying to use color to help our customers identify consciously or subconsciously, the type of environment that they're in. Am I, implementing a tool? Am I taking a core feature training, or am I watching a thought leader webinar? And so that's one way in which we're using themes. But there's more. Anna, keep going.
Okay. The other thing is our template collection. So all the blocks we showed you, once we build them, we save them as a template. And then if we want to use that quiz for a different lesson, we just plop it in and make some adjustments. For the certification I just showed, we didn't just have one question, we had 10. So I spent a little bit of time on the first one, but then the next ones were pretty quick. So that's what you can do with templates. Another thing that Peter and I, when we learned about this from Andrew, we geeked out. It's very simple, but very effective. So in Parda, you can assign tasks to each other. Peter and I are just two people, and there's a lot of content we're building at the same time. So let's say I'm building a lesson, and then I need to upload a video in there, and I can't find that video, and I know Peter knows where that video is. I can assign a task and say, Peter, can you upload this video, please? On his end, he'll see that task. He clicks on it. It takes him to the exact location where he needs to upload it. He uploads it, resolves the task, and then I know, okay, great, it's done. And that makes it so efficient.
And that was a really pointed example. Like, okay, it's true. But no, it's awesome. Um, and Anna also, what we've done in terms of like task management and commenting, um, we've actually been using this tool for user acceptance testing. Anna, can you talk a little bit about like how you set up the user acceptance tests and some of the tools that we're using and how we get people in and the outcome of the feedback?
Yeah, so with user acceptance testing, we would share a link with our subject matter experts, and then they go in and they can comment on specific elements without disrupting any of our work. And then we go in the same in the same course, like we don't need to go anywhere else. We see their comments, we see the exact thing they commented on, and we fix it and we resolve it, and we can also respond to them. So that once again makes it very efficient. Anything
And
else, Peter?
I was just saying, like, I think their feedback, like, we used other tools in the past, like we were on A360 and we used A360 Review when we were running past UATs. And I think for us, where Ann and I would get really frustrated was in that, and even our UATers, like the testers, they weren't always sure if their comment was landing on the area of the training. And in this case, the feedback has actually improved. Like the quality of what they're giving us is even better because they can be so targeted. Now, instead of saying, oh, this area is confusing, and then Ann and I are left with something super general, and we're like, we can't work with general negative feedback. Instead, it's like, oh, this section would probably work better 2 blocks down, and I might retitle it A, B, and like this sentence instead because this is what our audience understands. And I'm like, this is the information we need. This is the feedback we've been craving for. Super specific, value add, recommendations for how we can improve because they know our audience best. So yeah, the task management and commenting, I think for us operationally we've really shifted a lot of what we do through one tool, which has been fantastic. The other tool that we do use for like project management, we're using Atlassian, Jira, and Confluence.
And finally, the last thing is our resource library. So in Parta, you can organize all your assets, which is really nice. I know it feels like it was a while ago, but when Peter started showing you the lesson navigator and that button we use with the arrow that goes up, that is an icon we created, and we put it in this particular folder for icons and buttons and stuff like that. So then when I'm designing a new lesson, I just go to that folder and pull up the asset I need. So very easy, very simple. I don't need to upload it every time when I'm creating a new lesson. And I think that completes our studio tour. Peter, do you want to talk a little bit about some impact?
Yeah. So, like I said, we've been using Parta for about 6 months now, and so the impact is small. That we're looking at a micro data here, right? But I actually looked this up this morning because I was curious, and I added this block about 10 minutes before we kicked off the webinar, so it was super easy. Um, but I looked at our new onboarding, our new student onboarding catalog. We've got about 10 modules in that catalog, and so I looked at the past 4 months since we kicked off Parta to today, and then the 4 months prior to kicking off this catalog with Parta. And this catalog was available pre-Parta as well. So that's how we have this before and after data. And before we launched Parta, we were at a 66% completion rate. We're really happy with that. That is a great completion rate. Like I have no problem there. But after Parta, our completion rate is 91%. And I have to attribute that because, when we were updating the material, this migration from A360 to Parta, we were really changing a lot of just aesthetics. The information was the same, right? But aesthetically, visually, interactively, it had manipulated and changed. And so this increase of 25 percentage points, it's fantastic to see. And I want to keep getting data like this. Like, I know, Blair, I know, 91, 91. Are you kidding me? It's like wild, wild. Granted, these are also very easy courses, but it's still promising data, you know? Um, Okay, great. Let's dive into the Q&A. Y'all start dropping some questions in the chat. I know Randon and Rochelle had asked a question earlier about videos and how we're using videos. Um, we are using a combination. We are doing video, we are doing text-based, we are doing interactive, we are doing assessments, we are doing job aids, PowerPoints. So yes, we're doing it all. Videos, the way that we're using videos right now, we've moved away from using videos as like a singular lesson. Like if you are going from lesson A to lesson B, and lesson B is a video-based lesson, like we're moving away from just having the video. And instead, we are having the video be part of the lesson's journey, right? So we have our introduction, and then perhaps that's where we start and kick off with the video. Anna, actually, do you want to pull up a day in the life with ChurnZero from the new user mods? Because I think that can show a great example.
Sure.
And another way in which we're using video, and Randon and Rochelle, I think this is something that I was inspired by SkillJar when we were working on SkillJar. We're using Absorb LMS today, FYI. But you know, what I liked in SkillJar is that you could have these video previews. And so now what we're doing is we are creating cover pages, and we have a cover page. We will include a video if we have like a promo or like a summary of the lesson. So we'll include that on a cover page. For example, when a customer first joins ChurnZero, the first lesson they have is how to prepare for their implementation kickoff. And we have a little video that takes them through the entire implementation journey, high level. Here's an example of the first lesson that one of a new user would view, a day in the life of ChurnZero. This really summarizes at a high level how a CSM would use our tool. And the video is at the very top. I want them to see that. That's the first thing I want them to see. The other thing that we're doing is we're calling out what exactly they need to do to complete this module. And the reason we do this is because we're tying product data to our reports. So there are specific actions within all of these modules. This first module, the only call to action is to watch the video and then go to the next lesson. But in other lessons, we'll have a call to action like log in or set up your profile or integrate your email or your calendar. And then what we're doing is we're taking those data points and then we're actually reporting on that and sharing that with the customers, like the stakeholder. So those stakeholders can help keep their teams accountable. But this is how we can create these. It's almost like an interactive PDF, you know? But I'm gonna keep looking for other questions because otherwise I'm gonna ramble. Anna, you're supposed to keep me from rambling. Okay,
Okay, sorry.
it's okay. Okay, Dan, would love to hear about how you manage your collections. Are there specific criteria for what templates get added? Any philosophy about naming templates? Do you allow users to add templates? Dan, that's a great question. You're looking at our team. This is the team. It's Anna and I. And Andrew just moonlights. But great question. So we have over 126 templates that we've customized from the Parta library, and like rebranded, reformatted, all that jazz. And I'm now in the place where I'm starting to go through and actually organize them. So the way that I'm thinking about it is what are the different common elements of our courses. So we're going to have footers, we're going to have headers. Maybe we have video introduction blocks. So what I'm doing is in one collection I have ChurnZero custom footers, ChurnZero custom headers. I think there's also a new tool that Andrew was showing me where you can actually start using hashtags and tag your templates. But I would just think about how are you currently organizing the structure of your material, and then think about how that might translate to the blocks, right? That might be a good way to start. Naming conventions, best advice I have is consistency, clarity. Ours, I mean, it might, for a specific block, I'm trying to think it, header. So for example, if we have a header block, it's like header block, if it's in a certain color, like where our brand color is teal or purple, I'll do teal. If it's a large or small, I'll say large versus small. So that might be one way I might name it. Also, ChatGPT is really good at recommending different naming conventions. And do we allow other users to add templates? Both of us are adding templates. One thing that I think is nice though is with user permission. So say you have a larger team, maybe you have a team of the instructional designers that actually design the templates and then they can send those out to others. I think there's also a way that you can have your users submit the templates for review approval. all that jazz. And otherwise, you can just build that into a process for yourself. Great question. Randon, could you share a bit more about what type of simulations, hotspot interactions you're using? Any feedback from your customers? Yeah, so in terms of these simulations, especially for the certification itself, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback. It's actually been an improvement. We had a simulation that we were using prior. It was a tool that we were going to sunset and we no longer use. But that tool was less reliable in its functionality. It was more of a true like simulated sandbox. But the amount of time, Anna, how long did it take to build out the old simulations? Like one?
Oh, I don't even know. Like maybe building wasn't the longest piece, but like it took weeks to like test and retest and redo, and it was just a little bit too labor intensive.
Yeah, yeah. And so when simulations came out, Anna jumped on it. And the way that it turned out is beautiful. Really thrilled with it. Our customers are actually, we've seen an uptick of these certifications, this level 2 cert. Um, and even our beta testers, when they were commenting and providing feedback on it, their feedback wasn't necessarily about it wasn't about the content. It wasn't about the, you know, effectiveness of the simulation. For them, they were like, I want more. They were excited because they liked it. And they're like, ooh, for example, they saw we forgot to turn the hint off for one of the questions during the UAT, and someone saw the hint and they're like, "Oh my God, I wish there was another hint. Can you put hints on all of them?" And I'm like, "It's a certification, so no, we're not going to do hints. That's not how we test people." But Ann and I talked about this because we were like, "Why would someone want a hint? It's a certification." But we're like, okay, hints might actually be good, especially if we want to do like a in-lesson knowledge check, super basic. So we actually do have hints. We're using a simulation for one of the multiple choice questions, and it's an even simpler simulation, and that one we do have hints on.
Yeah, and then also within our multiple choice questions in the certification, we also like using that hotspot one. So essentially you add a screenshot and then you ask like, where do you need to click to do this action? And then there is a hotspot, and if they click correctly, they move to the next question. It's a and it's really nice instead of asking a very convoluted question, right? So like using visuals instead of, a paragraph to describe a scenario is really nice.
Dan Winter asks a fabulous question. How many people do you have authoring content in Carta, and how do you provide guidelines or best practices for consistency and balancing the creativity with standards? That's been tricky. Yeah, felt. I think what Anne and I have really been striving for this year in terms of from a design perspective is we want to have a synergistic vibe between our website, our training resources, the LMS, these courses, and our product UI. And so that's where we're really blending a lot of our brand and product elements and colors. In terms of who's authoring, it's Anna and I. We're authoring, just the two of us. Anna and I actually have two different styles for authoring in Parta. So one way in which I like to organize our blocks is I'll do rows with columns. I actually wonder if I might be able to share my screen because I could show you. Oh, well, we have 5 minutes left. But basically, Anna will tend to use pixels to control sizing of certain blocks, and I like to use proportions. But we both understand the functionality between two. So for us, it's easier to work in each other's projects because I can move into pixel mode and Anna can move into proportion mode. I would say this is a good opportunity to talk to your designers, talk to the people who are authoring those tools, understand their style, understand how are you going about structuring the actual blocks and designing them. I would definitely put together guidelines, right? So let's interview our designers. Let's find out what they like to do, how they like to do it, and how they like to keep their information organized. From that conversation, I'd probably record that so you can get a transcript, throw that into AI. Maybe AI can recommend ways in which you can then start to add structure to your team and how they go about building and customizing these blocks. And as far as
Yeah.
your brand guidelines, like Ann and I, we stick to what our marketing team has provided us. And our marketing team provided a beautiful brand guide that tells you, here's how you can be flexible, and here are the constraints of your flexibility.
Yeah, and
I,
there are different levels of permissions. So if you want to be building templates, but you don't want your designers building any, you can control that. And then they would use a template you build. If you do want them to use the no code editor, then you can allow that. So there's a lot of ways to kind of
yeah,
um, set that
if I
up.
can just add, because I know a little bit the Dan's context, I think his challenge is like just he really has a massive team. And I think the question is also how to organize the library of the templates. I think that's
Mm.
something, Peter, that you also kind of started working on this literally recently when we also added these custom hashtags. So now you have both like ability to customize, just like to store everything, kind of building the collection of folders, but also like building the hashtags. So you have kind of like two layers how you can organize. So I hope that like in the next couple of quarters, that will be something new that you can share. But yeah, I think I would be probably trying to solve this along these lines, the just classification of folders and hashtags.
I like that. I like that, Andrew, because I think about, what if you had folders for if your team is broken up and maybe they have specific focuses for their projects. Maybe they each get their own folder, and then within that folder, the hashtags are used to identify the blocks by their purpose. Great question.
Yeah.
Project folder structure information is wonderful. Chris, thank you. You're right. Um, Brandon, it is always great to hear from you. Thank you for the questions. Proportions, yes. Ben Moore, glad you made it. We're happy that you're impressed with our work. Thank you. We want to make sure that you and your customers are successful. Do we have any other? Oh, is there a new question? Okay. Nope. I think I've got all the Q&A. We've got about a minute left. Oh, Chris,
Oh, any
any other
other things
things to
not
not?
to not do? I want to say something. As you start using Parda, please spend time learning the no code editor. It was quite a transition for me and Peter to stop. So, we shared that before. We used the articulate rise before. It's a different animal. But the moment we spend a little bit of time in Parda and understood how this works, our efficiency, shot up exponentially. So it does require a little bit of work up front, but then you reap the rewards very quickly. So I just wanted to make it clear, is you might feel a little bit intimidated at the beginning, or that it's not as intuitive as you thought, but it is. Just if you spend a little bit of time there.
I totally agree with Anna. I think we spent about 2 solid weeks really just trying to understand the tool, and from there we blossomed. And the only other thing I would say to not do is do not lose track of your time, because once you start playing in it, it is so easy to look down and realize you've just spent your entire day designing and having fun building and customizing blocks, and you have other shit that you got to do. So don't lose track of your time. Andrew, thank you so much for having us. This was great. If y'all, Anna and I are both in the customer education Slack community. If you are ChurnZero users, we would love to hear your feedback on the Academy. It is continuously being worked on and updated. And we hope that everyone got a lot out of this. We're excited to share these templates with you. Thank you, Andrew, for making that possible. And yeah, y'all have fun with no code editor. Let's build some really beautiful designs.
Peter, Anna, thank you so much. I think I just like to reiterate, we'll share the stuff that you shared like with us earlier today. Is going to be like a public link functionality in Porta. So yeah, expect it like just to be over it maybe tomorrow together with the recording. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I think I'm excited, and I'm like the beauty, like kind of working with the kind of creators like yourself, Peter and Anna, is like just I feel always like impressed every like next week with what you're creating. It goes like literally beyond the expectations that we had in Parta as founders, what we kind of invested and designed. So it's really very rewarding to see this like freedom and really kind of creativity and just design. And yeah, so thank you so much for being like great users. We love partnering with you guys.
Well, we love Parta.
Yeah.
Y'all
Cool.
have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're logging in from. And yeah, if you guys have any cool blocks that you've made yourselves, maybe we drop them in the Parta channel in the Customer Ed Slack community. That might be a fun idea. You've seen 5 of ours. Let us see 5 of yours. Have a good one, y'all.
Cool. Cheers. Have a great
See
time.
ya.
Bye.